Penny Black and Jill Foster here for your next PB&J card class. Today we'll be doing some stamping and watercoloring to create a mini card. For this card we'll be using Penny Black Cheerful and Penny Black Letter background. So to begin, I've just taken a piece of book paper, so I just tore it out of an old book, and I'm going to be applying some gesso on top of this because I want to really tone down the text in the background. I want it to just barely be peeking through. Plus the gesso is a really nice surface to watercolor on. The water and the colors move real nicely. So I'm doing this really messy using my fingers. You could use a brush if you wanted. I just would rather clean my hands than a brush. So once that is applied, you can use your heat gun to set it, or you can just wait for it to dry. Now I'm taking my stamp and I'm inking it with Distress ink in the color of Pumice Stone. And I just wanted to pick a really light color ink. So instead of sketching a drawing on here, I'm just stamping. And it'll give me just a guide onto where to place my color. So now I'm ready to begin coloring in the image, and I'm using Faber-Castell Art Grip Aquarelle watercolor pencils. And you can really just scribble the color on. I've picked a real light yellow color, an orange, and then kind of a burnt yellowish orange color to go on. And we're going to do this in several layers. So I'm going to just color in the petals, and then I'm taking just a very small brush with just a little bit of water, and I'm just coloring right on there and moving that color around. So I'm kind of trying to keep the middle, keep a light area in the middle, and just sort of slide that color and that pigment around. And there's several steps to this process. So at first, it might not feel very vibrant or that you're getting a lot of shading, but just keep working at it. So now I've done all the petals with the yellow, and I'm going back now with a red. And I'm just coloring right on top. So it's dry, and I'm just adding some more shading right on top. And I'm just kind of dabbing off the excess water onto my hand. You don't want your brush to have too much water. And I'll kind of swipe across where I've colored, but also sort of dab on top so you get those nice puddles, and it doesn't look perfect because we want this to look watercolored, not that it's perfectly colored in. So I'm just off camera there dipping into my water and then kind of dabbing it onto my hand to remove the excess water. You could also use a paper towel. So there's a look. After that's dry, you get that nice puddling look. I'm adding some more orange on top. And I sped up the drying process by just hitting it with my heat gun, but holding it at a distance so that those puddles still dried and could kind of sit there as it dried. So I'm going back again with my water to blend this, trying to keep some of that light yellow on those petals. And if you get too much in one place, just go back with some more water and move that around. Or you can dab it with your finger like I'm doing there. Now I colored in the center, and I'm just applying water now to move that around. I got a little too much water on there, so I'm just using a baby wipe to kind of pat that and remove the excess water, kind of wick up the baby wipe. And I want to have some of this darker color move up into the petals. So first I want to make sure it's completely dry, and then I'm just coloring some of that up onto the petals. Now as you work on this, you'll be amazed when we go back and do some outlining, what a difference that makes. So just keep adding your shading and don't be afraid that it looks like it's not quite finished yet. So I'm going to work on the leaves now. So I've just grabbed a couple of different colors of green, pretty traditional green, and then I'll also use a little bit of a blue-green. And no need to feel like you need to shade this perfectly. You're just getting those pigments onto that area so you can blend them with the water. And I want to make sure to try and leave some areas of light within that image. So just moving that around, pulling the darker color towards the edge of the leaf. I'm doing the same over on this other side. And then we'll color the stem as well. Now once that dried, I really wanted to go back and brighten that up. So you can see just several layers until it gets to the point that you like it. But while I'm doing that, I'm really trying to keep that imperfect look of sort of the areas and blotchiness where it has dried, because I think that is the charm of watercolor. Now we're ready to do some outlining. So I want this to look like I just sketched this as opposed to stamped and colored it in. So I'm using a Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen. This is the extra small tip. And I'm just outlining and sketching around those petals. So I don't want it to be perfect. Some of the lines are kind of broken up. The painting goes in and out of the lines. And then you can also put your stamp, right next to where you're sketching those lines on if you're looking for ideas on where to add additional details. And I did change the center up a little bit. So that's kind of the beauty of this technique as well, is that you can switch it up however you like it. It doesn't have to look exactly like the stamp. It's just a guide. I'm also going to go around the leaves. So you can see here where I changed just the sort of the veins in the leaves, kept it really simple. Now this is the Faber-Castell Stamper's Big White Pen. And it's really nice to go over here if you want to lighten up some of those areas. Now it does start to re-blend the watercolor because it's so wet. So you'll see that I'll sort of color on my hand, or you could use a scratch sheet of paper in between to remove that excess color off of the tip of that marker. And then I'll blot it with my finger. Then I wanted to get some even brighter highlights, so this is just white acrylic paint and a very small liner paintbrush. I'm just sort of sketching a few of those white highlights on there. And then we'll add a few on the leaves. And just a touch on the stem. And this is a Pit Artist pen, warm gray. It's very subtle, but I'm just adding it around the outside of the stamped image for a bit of a shadow. And on that gesso, this just blends in really nicely. If it gets a little too dark, you can always go back right over with your fingertip and sort of smudge it and move it around before it dries. Add another layer if you want to darken it up. Now we're going to add some Distress ink to the background. So this is tea dye Distress ink, and I'm applying it with the applicator tool on a foam pad, sort of starting off of the edge and working my way on. And then also holding the piece up in my hand and dabbing that along the edges. And I'll do that a little bit later too with some darker Distress ink. So I wanted to add some stamping. So this is penny black letter background in the tea dye Distress ink. And right now I'm just looking, kind of getting an idea where that flower would be, and I'll dab that part off with a baby wipe. I'm going to stamp it straight down. And then I wanted to darken it up even more on the corners. So just going over the bottom corner and this top corner with some more script. And here's that gathered twigs that I mentioned. I'm just going to go around that outer edge. A little more contrast. Now to add some more movement to this background, I'm coloring with a Faber-Castell Stampers Big Brush pen onto an acrylic block. I'm just adding water with my paintbrush, and then I'm going to tap my paintbrush on my finger, just add some splotches to the background. We can get a look at those. So I've done that with purple, and then I'll also do it with the black. So same process, and just hold it across my finger and tap. And they lighten up just a little bit as they dry. Now, if you want to go back and just brighten up your image a little bit, you can take a Pit Artist pen and just color right on top. And because there's so many layers here and the gesso beneath, it's very easy to blend this using your fingertips. So just coloring a little bit and then patting or sliding your fingertip across. So I like really bold color, and this is a way for me to go back in case any of the colors have gotten a little bit watered down. You can go back this way and just brighten them up just a touch. So I'm doing that with the red, and then I also wanted to bring out that yellow a little bit more. So I'm just kind of patting that marker. Again, I don't want to cover up all those great sort of blotchy ways that the watercolor dried. So I'm just staying around the edge and patting it with my fingers so that it also has an imperfect look. You just keep playing around until you get the color that you like. And I also wanted to do that down here on the leaves. So I'm just taking the green Pit Artist pen, coloring, and then patting it with my finger. And a touch on the stem. All right, all I did was add this layered on a couple pieces of cardstock and add some ribbon and twine. For more details and information, visit the Penny Black website, www.pennyblackink.com, and here's a list of all the supplies used. Thanks for watching.